Morning. Welcome to Walking with Warbird. I felt like it was a very low risk to take a month to think about things and to not jump so quickly into the capecitabine. I felt like my cancer had been progressing quite slowly, I think in part due to the metabolic treatments. And so one more month didn't seem like a huge risk versus the reward. The reward was massive. If in that month I could get to the point where I felt like I was having an effective protocol, then I could then take longer before jumping onto chemo, right? So the whole idea was I'm going to take a month. I'm going to see if the metabolic treatment can reduce my cancer. And the tricky part was going to be how to measure that. So I just had the scan, a PET scan in August, end of August, and I wasn't getting another one until the beginning of November. There's really no good way to measure the growth or cancer without a scan of some kind. And for me, the gold standard is PET scan. I can do a blood test. So there is a blood test called CA153, which is a biomarker for breast cancer. Now, some doctors think it's as useful as a random number generator. Other doctors, on the other hand, will bet your life on the test. So, for example, I am in a therapy group with metastatic patients once a week. And there's some people in that group, one woman in particular, where her oncologist does the CA153 every single month. And if that value doesn't change, he doesn't even give her a scan. So she's just on her treatment, gets her blood work done once a month. If the CA153 doesn't move, he doesn't give her a scan. In that example, he's pretty much betting her life on that test. Meanwhile, there's other people in that group where their physicians don't order the CA153 at all because they feel like it's a useless test. So why is it we have different oncologists doing different things? Like, what is the truth? Is it a useless test, or is it a really valuable test, or is it based on each person, right? For me, I feel it's a very valuable test because for like an entire year, pretty much before I was diagnosed, I had been having symptoms. And at least 6 months before, I'd been having a whole lot of pain. And I'd gone to emergency, blah, 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 lots of blood work done. Of all the blood work that was done when things were coming back weird, they would do more blood work and more blood work, even x-rays. But at no point did someone just draw a CA153, which in all honesty is a very cheap test. Like, I'm thinking the cost to the Canadian medical system is probably under $30 Canadian. So, but anyway, it was off the charts by the time I was diagnosed. So that would have diagnosed me well before my back broke. And by the time they did do that CA153, it was off the charts. And when I first started my hormone therapy, it started coming down. So it did show a correlation between my cancer, having less tumor load equaled a lower CA value. And then the only time it seemed inconsistent was right after my breast tumor had gone away. Right after that, so my breast tumor was gone officially in December. My CA153 in January 2024 actually went up a bit. And that was odd. But I put it down to the fact that when cancer cells die, they release their contents into the bloodstream. Depending on your tumor load, that can actually be a catastrophic health event. But in my case, it was just the breast tumor. And I think it probably released some of the contents of the CA153 into the bloodstream, which meant it became more measurable, right? Rather than that protein being within the cancer cells, they were now loose in the bloodstream. After that, my CA153 started coming down until right around that next PET scan, which was April, where the CA153 went up a little bit and my PET scan showed a little bit of progression. And then again, every month after that, my CA153 was going up slightly, and each subsequent scan was showing slight progression. So for me, that test has been pretty much bang on accurate. The only time I had like an opposite effect was right after that breast tumor was gone. But studies do say that you can have that effect. And I think that is part of the confusion with the accuracy of it. Okay, so what's my point? My point is that taking a month to do a metabolic treatment solo with no other conventional therapy became this really important thing I needed to do. And I knew there was no way to measure whether that was going to work or not, except that blood work. So it was like, if after doing metabolic treatment for a month, my CA153 went down, I told myself, okay, I'm not going to do the capecitabine. I'm going to continue to do the metabolic therapy. If the CA153 went up a little bit or a lot, I wasn't going to know what that meant. You know, it's probably would mean progression. There is that small chance that if that metabolic treatment had reduced my tumor load, if I had actually killed cancer cells, I could also have an uptick. So it was tough. It was like, I'm going to do the best I can in this month and hope it goes down. If it doesn't go down, I have a really difficult decision to make. And I was so torn September. It was deciding to do protocol number 7. I had a lot of lessons learned from protocol 5 and 6, where I was using the enteric coated capsule. One of the things I learned after kind of dissecting everything was there was so much confusion over the gastric emptying speed. So luckily, there's a whole community of people out there now doing this. And so I was able to kind of brainstorm what I could have done wrong or differently from the first few protocols, right? So obviously, the first few protocols, I was taking my glutamine inhibitor as a raw powder. Now, you lose a whole bunch of the bioavailability in the stomach and through the liver metabolizing it. But I still had really amazing results. So here we are, 9 months later, and the biggest change was now I was putting it in an enteric coated capsule, which should, in theory, actually make it more effective. But I had progression. So then it's okay, well, was my glucose different? Looking back at my glucose, it wasn't perfect, either in the first 3 protocols or in 5 and 6. In the first 3 protocols, I was aiming for a glucose of like 4.1 millimoles, which actually was a bit high. I should have been aiming for 3.2 to 3.6. But so it's almost like I did everything, like I didn't do anything well as hard as I tried. I didn't do anything really well in the first 3 protocols, yet I did have amazing results. So then 5 and 6, I tried harder. Positive, I feel so confident that the effects of the glutamine inhibitor would have been greater taking it with an enteric coated capsule. What I'm not sure about is whether I was actually in the chamber during peak plasma. And, I went back to the manufacturer of the company that makes the enteric coated capsules, and the instructions that I had totally not looked at, which is like the dumbest mistake ever. But I was so focused on figuring out what the average gastric emptying speed is that it never really dawned on me to see what the manufacturer said. Turns out the manufacturer says that the pill will dissolve like 2 to 2 hours and 45 minutes after you ingest it. But that just seems like too long, because I'm also was doing all of this on an empty stomach, right? So I could see it taking like 2 hours and 45 minutes to pass from your stomach to your intestines if you've also eaten like a piece of steak and an avocado. But on an empty stomach should pass quicker. But anyway, long story short, I don't know when it was actually releasing. But, and poke holes in this all you want. I would love feedback. But taking the pill on an empty stomach and it's an enteric coated, that bypass speed or the gastric emptying speed shouldn't really be any different than if you just take the powder loose. Either way, nothing is happening until it gets to the small intestine. When you take the powder loose, half the bioavailability is destroyed in the stomach. When you take the enteric coated, it's just sitting there. So either way, it's in your stomach. You can't see a tiny little pill taking really much longer to pass than just your regular fluids passing into your small intestine. And then those enteric coated capsules, they dissolve like instantly when the pH changes. So they both would then release, or your small intestines would now take that up into your system at the same time. So I feel like the enteric coated capsule and just a dry powder, the timing should be the same. And in the first 3 protocols, I was taking the dry powder like half an hour, 20 minutes before the hyperbaric chamber. And then in the enteric capsules, I was doing it like an hour before hyperbaric or an hour and a half before hyperbaric. But then the manufacturer's instructions were like 2 to 2 hours and 45 minutes. So I don't know what the right timing is for that. But either way, I had also told myself during protocol 6 that I was moving to subcutaneous if I didn't see serious results. So September was the month I was going to go hard, see what I could achieve before doing any kind of chemotherapy. And I was going to move to subcutaneous because then it is 100% bioavailable. So I did that. My first few doses of protocol 7, I stayed with the enteric coated capsule because I just feel strongly like I'm getting the efficacy, or I stuck with the enteric coated capsules for the first few doses because I still firmly believe you're getting more bang for your buck. It's just a question of the timing. And honestly, you'd have to go to my blog and read all my notes for protocol 7. I don't remember the exact timing anymore, but I only did a few doses orally with the enteric coated capsules before I reconstituted the crystalline powder, which normally would be an enteric coated capsule, into a liquid that was injectable. And then I did, I think, 4 subcutaneous injections of the glutamine inhibitor for that, ending that protocol. And I actually was going like, I was no longer doing like 1 day on, 3 days off. It was like as many as I could. So I think I did maybe 9 doses in September. Then, beginning of October, here I am, supposed to make a decision. I got my blood work done, and my CA153 went up. Didn't go up a lot, but it went up a little bit, which is, of course, not what I was looking for. Odds were good that it was going to go up, but I was, of course, really hoping for it to go down. So that was really hard. Psychologically, I was really tired. In fact, I was exhausted in the summer, like exhausted. I was so tired. All the driving every few days, hours of driving, sitting in a hyperbaric tank, the strict ketogenic diet, all of the attempts to lower my glucose, just the constant thinking, all of it. I was so tired. And when I got that PET scan result at the end of August, it was deflating. I mean, it's weird. I wasn't brokenhearted. I wasn't this devastating, like, oh my God, I'm going to die. It was nothing like that. It was just like, what went wrong? How can I work harder? What did I do wrong? What can I do better? I was so tired. But I couldn't afford to take a break. My cancer was progressing. I'm not taking any conventional therapy at that point because it's not working. And my oncologist wants me to do chemotherapy. It just didn't seem like the right time to kick back and just take a break from everything. So September was brutal. And when I got that CA153 result showing it had increased, I was so deflated. It just, all of a sudden, I was faced with all these decisions. Like, I felt fine. I didn't feel pain anywhere. And my oncologist had said, it will likely progress, and it will likely progress in the bones. It may or may not move to another organ. Hopefully not with the slow progression we had seen, but as it starts to progress in the bones, I will likely feel it. I'll feel pain. So beginning of October, I felt great. I didn't have any pain. And then I also was like, hey, I also need to get strong again, right? Like no more monkey business. I need to also get my muscle because I had slowly been losing muscle, which is totally legitimate after like an entire year of calorie reduced ketogenic diet with minor amount of protein, right? Like I was not getting tons of protein because protein can turn into sugar. Or glucose. So anyway, I decided I was going to start going back to physiotherapy and doing more weights home. So I'd gone on to like a, Facebook marketplace type thing and bought some secondhand weights. And when I was loading them into my car, just kind of this angle of picking it up, putting it in, I felt this tweak in my back. Very minor, but I felt it. And then the next day, it just started getting worse. So that was October 10th. And it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And I couldn't tell, like, was that muscle pain? I mean, 100%, it felt like muscle pain. It made sense it was muscle pain. But once you have terminal cancer, it's like everything you see is cancer, You could stub your toe and then you're like, oh my gosh, I have cancer in my toe. Like, it's the first thing your brain goes to. So I was back and forth for quite a while being like, is this cancer? Is this muscle? I think it's muscle. God, what if it's cancer? Maybe it's referral pain from, a nerve, or, oh my gosh, where's my liver? That could be the bottom end of my liver. Oh, no, can't be the kidney. Kidney's way up here. Like constant thinking and circles. And pretty much, I think it was October 17th. So I had the capecitabine. I had picked it up from the pharmacy. It was at my house and I just hadn't started taking it yet because I was still thinking like, feel good up until that point, right? Maybe I can keep going. I don't know. What am I doing? Am I taking too much personal risk? Why am I doing this? All sorts of thoughts. So October 17th, I finally decided, okay, I'm taking it. And I just, boom, there we go. Took my first dose of the oral chemo. And today is, I don't know, like November 20 something. So it's been about just over a month. And I think I just did my second cycle of capecitabine. And in the last pretty much month, starting with that weird pain in the right hand side, I did start getting more pain. Now, lying on my side, either side, I would get this weird kind of pain in my lower back. Only if I lie on my back does it not hurt. I started getting like pains everywhere, but to be honest, I think a lot of it was muscle. The right hand side, it's now kind of almost gone. I feel like that definitely was some kind of muscle. I also got this weird pinch up in my left shoulder blade. That was like insane. Like I couldn't even move my arm for a couple days. That I'm pretty sure, I think my muscles were just freaking out over everything. And then who knows what happens when you take chemo. Like my inflammation went up. Also, I ate horrible in October. I pretty much just fell apart thinking about chemo. And I was so exhausted. I just totally fell off keto. I ate worse than I've ever eaten in my life. I pretty much went down to the liquor store. I found this amazing Dutch store and oh my God, they've got black licorice. So many kinds. Oh my gosh. So good. My favorite is the black licorice chalk. I bought bags of that. I ate tons of fruit and vegetables, right? But I mean, I ate bagels and pasta and pizza, and I pretty much ate everything. I hadn't eaten any Thai food, sushi, I did Indian, just like I ate so much. And then, of course, there's this guilt associated with that. Like, oh my God, I'm feeding my cancer. And also just, it was so dumb because come November, I'm getting my PET scan. What if that month of September had actually knocked my cancer back? I would never know because the next month I just fucking feed it. I'm so tired though. I still am, but I'm not feeling defeated like I was in October. So that is kind of where I'm at now. We're up to speed. I'm having progression. I am back in a state of ketosis. I'm not being crazy diligent right now, though. And so what I mean by that is I'm not doing a 4-to-1, 300 calories every 3 hours. I am pretty much just eating no carbs, except for a little bit in vegetables. And I'm getting lazy. I probably mentioned before, I hate cooking, I hate shopping, I hate prepping, I hate thinking about food, I hate all of it. So I am not eating often. I'm eating randomly. I'm just making sure it's very low carb. Haven't been measuring my blood glucose or ketones. My plan is to continue. It's again, I can't tease out what the chemotherapy and the metabolic, I can't tease the two apart. So doing both, there's going to be no definitive this works or not. However, I think I just need to get to a place where I feel confident that I'm healthy and my cancer is not growing. I talked to my oncologist quite a bit about going on and off capecitabine and what are the effects and chemo breaks and things like that. And it turns out that there isn't any difference in the overall length of survival between people who stay on their capecitabine or the chemo anyway, continuously versus people who take breaks. So it's like, well, why not take a break then? Like at the end of the day, if you're going to die at the same time, then might as well take breaks, right? So I'm thinking that I'm going to stay on the capecitabine, keep doing metabolic treatment, see what my scans look like, regardless of which one is working, if it's both or it doesn't really matter. As long as I get to a point where I have tumor load and I feel good, I can then make a decision. Do I want to take a chemo break? Do I want to do it for a whole 3 months between scans and just do metabolic therapy? Because doing that, I could then pull apart which one is working. Anyways, the pulse part, I think I perfected. I mean, there's other things I can do, but I don't think it's really all that necessary when I compare the press to the pulse, right? Like the pulse is very good. Making any improvements to that, I don't think I'm going to have the same gain as if I make improvements to the press, which means I need to get my glucose into that 3.2 to 3.6 range all the time, not just for a few days here and there. So how do I do that when I'm exhausted? Like mentally, I've pretty much given up on the whole planning, prepping, cooking, eating. So I think what I'm going to do is tube feed. I know that sounds crazy, but I've talked to, again, my care team. I have not just oncologists, I have GPs, naturopaths, dietitians, the works. So tube feeding with a pure protein, I can really easily manage my 4-to-1 and the timing, and there's no effort. So I've done a little bit of messing around with it, and it's pretty much like based on the protein I have, like half a scoop of the protein, which I think was like 15 milligrams, with 2 tablespoons of avocado oil is my 4-to-1, 300 calorie. Yeah. And then I'm going to continue to do all the medications like I'm supposed to. Most of them I can actually just crush up and into the tube as well. It sounds crazy, but not really. Like it sounds crazy, but at the end of the day, when you think about medical intervention, like it is crazy, right? A lot of medical interventions are crazy. A little tube feeding is really no big deal. But if I can do that for 2 weeks and and see if I can get my glucose into that 3.2 to 3.6 consistently 24 hours a day for 2 weeks, then I will likely just continue and just kind of plan things around that. So that's where I'm at now. And in future videos, you may see a tube hanging out of my nose. So that's my biggest update. And that brings us to current state. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in the next videos.